The Tongue-Cut Sparrow. Once upon a time in Japan, there lived an old man and his wife. The old man was a good, kind-hearted man who worked hard every day. But his wife was often in a bad mood, or easily annoyed, and spoiled the happiness of their home by complaining a lot. She was always complaining about something from morning to night, and the old man had stopped paying attention to her complaining. He spent most of the day working in the fields, and not having a child. He kept a tame sparrow for his amusement when he came home. He loved the little bird as if it were his own. When he came home at night after a hard day's work in the fields, his only pleasure was to talk to the sparrow and teach it little tricks, which it learned very quickly. The old man would open her cage and let her fly around the room, and they would play together, and at dinner he would share tasty bits of his meal with the little bird. One day, the old man went to the forest to chop wood, and the old woman stopped at home to wash clothes. She had made some starch the day before, and when she went to look for it, it was all gone. The bowl she had filled the day before was all empty. While she was wondering who could have used or stolen the starch, the sparrow came down, and bowing its little head, a trick it had learned from its master, the pretty bird said, "It is I who have taken the starch. I thought it was food put out for me in the bowl, and I ate it all. If I have made a mistake, please forgive me. Tweet, tweet, tweet." You can see that the sparrow was a truthful bird, and the old woman should have been ready to forgive her immediately when she asked for forgiveness so nicely. But not so. The old woman had never loved the sparrow, and had often argued with her husband about keeping what she called a dirty bird around the house, saying that it only caused her extra work. Now she was glad to find a reason to be angry. The old woman was very angry and spoke unkind words to the little bird for its bad behavior. She was so upset that she grabbed the sparrow, who all the time had spread its wings and bowed its head before the old woman to show how sorry it was. The old woman then took a scissors and cut off the bird's tongue. "I suppose you took my starch with that tongue. Now you can see what it is like to be without it." With these unpleasant words she forced the bird to leave. She didn't care at all what might happen to the bird, and showed no sympathy or compassion for its pain and difficulties. So unkind was she. In the evening the old man returned home. As usual, on his way home, he looked forward to the moment when he would arrive at his gate and see his pet flying to meet him, making happy noises, and finally coming to rest on his shoulder. But tonight the old man was very disappointed, for not even the shadow of his dear sparrow was to be seen. He quickened his pace and stepped out onto the porch. Still no sparrow. Now he was sure that his wife, in one of her bad moods, had locked the sparrow in its cage. So he called her and said anxiously, "Where is Miss Sparrow today?" The old woman pretended not to know and answered, "Your sparrow? I'm sure I don't know. Now that I think about it, I haven't seen her all afternoon. I shouldn't wonder if the ungrateful bird had flown away and left you after all your petting." But at last, when the old man would not leave her alone, but kept asking her, insisting that she must know what had happened to his pet. She admitted everything. She told him how the sparrow had eaten the rice paste she had made, and how, when the sparrow had admitted what she had done, she had become very angry and taken her scissors and cut out her tongue, and how she had made the bird go away and forbidden it to return to the house. Then the old woman showed her husband the sparrow's tongue and said, "Here is the tongue I cut off. Horrible little bird. Why did it eat all my starch? How could you be so cruel? Oh, how could you be so cruel?" was all the old man could answer. He was too good-hearted to punish his unpleasant wife, but he was very upset about what had happened to his dear little sparrow. "What a terrible thing for my poor little sparrow to lose her tongue," he said to himself. "She won't be able to chirp anymore, and surely the pain of cutting it out in such a rough way must have made her sick. Can nothing be done?" The old man cried a lot after his wife went to sleep. As he wiped away the tears with the sleeve of his cotton robe, a bright thought comforted him. He would go and look for the sparrow the next day. Having decided that, he could finally go to sleep. The next morning he got up early, ate breakfast quickly, and set out over the hills and through the woods, stopping at every cluster of bamboo plants to cry, "Where, oh where, is my tongue-cut sparrow? Where, oh where, does my tongue-cut sparrow stay alive?" He never stopped for lunch, and it was late in the afternoon when he found himself near a large bamboo forest. Bamboo forests are the favorite places of sparrows, and there, at the edge of the forest, he saw his own beloved sparrow waiting to greet him. He could hardly believe his eyes with joy and ran forward quickly to greet her. She bowed her little head and performed some of the tricks her master had taught her, to show her joy at seeing her old friend again. And in spite of the previous incident, the sparrow was able to talk again, just as she had done in the past. The old man told her how sorry he was for all that had happened, and asked about her tongue, wondering how she could speak so well without it. Then the sparrow opened her beak and showed him that a new tongue had grown in place of the old one, and begged him not to think of the past, for she was quite well now. Then the old man knew that his sparrow was a fairy and not a common bird. It would be hard to describe the old man's joy now. He forgot all his troubles. He even forgot how tired he was, for he had found his lost sparrow, and instead of being ill and without a tongue, as he had feared and expected, she was well and happy and with a new tongue, and without a sign of the ill treatment she had received from his wife. And most importantly, she was a fairy. The sparrow asked him to follow her, and flying in front of him, she led him to a beautiful house in the heart of the bamboo forest. The old man was amazed when he entered the house and saw what a beautiful place it was. It was built of the whitest wood. The soft cream-colored mats that took the place of carpets were the most beautiful he had ever seen. And the cushions that the sparrow brought for him to sit on were made of the finest silk. The sparrow guided the old man to the place of honor, and then, taking her place at a modest distance, She thanked him with many polite bows for all the kindness he had shown her for many long years. Then the Lady Sparrow, as we shall call her, introduced all her family to the old man. Her daughters, dressed in beautiful silk gowns, brought in a large and varied meal, with a wide selection of tasty and enjoyable foods, until the old man began to think he must be dreaming. In the middle of the meal, some of the sparrow's daughters performed a wonderful dance called the Sparrow's Dance to amuse the guest. The old man had never enjoyed himself so much. The hours passed too quickly in this lovely place, with all these fine meals and the fairy sparrows dancing before him. But night was coming, and the darkness reminded him that he had a long way to go, and that he must think of saying goodbye and returning home. The man thanked his kind hostess for her wonderful hospitality. He asked for her forgiveness for the difficulties caused by his unpleasant wife. He told the Lady Sparrow that it was a great comfort and happiness to him to find her in such a beautiful home and to know that she lacked nothing. It was his concern for her well-being that led him to seek her out, and now that he knew she was well, he could return home with a light heart. He told her that if she ever needed him for anything, she only had to send for him and he would come at once. The Lady Sparrow asked him to stay a few days and rest and enjoy the change, but the old man said he must return to his old wife, who would probably be angry if he did not come home at the usual time, and to his work. And so, much as he wanted to, he could not accept her kind invitation. But now that he knew where the Lady Sparrow lived, he would visit her whenever he had time. When the Lady Sparrow saw that she could not persuade the old man to stay any longer, she gave an order to some of her servants, and they immediately brought in 2 boxes, one large and the other small. These were placed in front of the old man, and the Lady Sparrow asked him to choose the one he liked best, as a present she wished to give him. The old man could not refuse this kind proposal, and he chose the smaller box, saying, "I am too old now to carry the big and heavy box. Since you are so kind as to say that I may take what I like, I will take the small one, which will be easier for me to carry." The sparrows helped the man place it on his back. Then they accompanied him to the gate, bowed to him, and told him to come back whenever he had a chance. So the old man and the sparrow separated happily, and the sparrow showed no anger despite all the unkindness he had received from the old woman. In fact, she only felt sorry for the old man, who had to suffer all his life. When the old man returned home, he found his wife more angry than usual, for it was late at night and she had been waiting for him for a long time. "Where have you been all this time?" she asked in a loud voice. "Why did you come back so late?" The old man tried to calm her down by showing her the box of presents he had brought with him, and then he told her all that had happened to him, and how wonderfully he had been entertained at the sparrow's house. "Now let us see what is in the box," said the old man, not giving her time to complain again. "You must help me to open it." So they both sat down in front of the box and opened it. They were surprised to discover that the box was filled with gold and silver coins, along with various other valuable items. As they took out each item, their little home lit up with the richness of what they had found. The old man was amazed at the thought of the unexpected wealth the sparrow had given him. This generous gift was beyond his wildest dreams, and would allow him to retire from work and live the rest of his days in ease and comfort. He said, "Thank you, my good little sparrow. Thank my good little sparrow," many times. But the old woman, after the first moments of surprise and satisfaction at the sight of the gold and silver had passed, could not control the desire of her evil nature. She began to blame the old man for not bringing home the big box of presents, for in the innocence of his heart he had told her how he had refused the big box of presents the sparrows had offered him, preferring the smaller one because it was light and easy to carry home. "You foolish old man," she said. "Why did you not bring the big box? Think of what we lost. We might have had twice as much silver and gold as this." "You are certainly an old fool," she shouted, and then she went to bed as angry as she could be. The old man wished he hadn't said anything about the big box, but it was too late. The greedy old woman wasn't satisfied with the good luck, even though she didn't really deserve it. Instead, she decided to get more if she could. Early the next morning, she got up and made the old man describe the way to the sparrow's house. When he saw what was in her mind, he tried to stop her, but it was useless. She would not listen to a word he said. It is strange that the old woman was not ashamed to go to the sparrow, after the cruel way she had treated her, by cutting off her tongue in a fit of rage. But her greed for the big box made her forget everything else. It did not even occur to her that the sparrows might be angry with her, as indeed they were, and might punish her for what she had done. Ever since the lady sparrow had returned home, in the sad condition in which they had first found her, crying and bleeding from the mouth, her family had talked of the old woman's cruelty. How could she, they asked each other, inflict such a cruel punishment for such a small mistake? They all loved the old man, who was so kind and good and patient in all his troubles, but they hated the old woman, and they decided that if they ever had the chance, they would punish her as she deserved. They did not have to wait long. After walking for several hours, the old woman finally reached the bamboo forest her husband had described, and now she stood in front of it and shouted, "Where is the house of the Tongue-Cut Sparrow? Where is the house of the Tongue-Cut Sparrow?" At last she noticed the edges of the roof of the house. She quickly went to the door and knocked loudly. When the servants told the lady sparrow that the old woman was at the door asking to see her, the lady sparrow was a little surprised at the unexpected visit, especially after all that had happened. But the lady sparrow was a polite bird, so she went out to greet the old woman, remembering that she had once been her owner. But the old woman didn't want to waste time talking. She came straight to the point, without any shame, and said, "You need not bother to entertain me as you did my old man. I have come myself to get the box he so foolishly left behind. I will take my leave soon if you will give me the big box, that is all I want." The Lady Sparrow agreed at once, and told her servants to bring out the big box. The old woman eagerly took it and carried it on her back, and without even stopping to thank the Lady Sparrow, she began to hurry home. The box was so heavy that she could not walk fast, much less run as she would have liked. So eager was she to get home and see what was in it, but she often had to stop and rest on the way. As she carried the heavy burden, her desire to open the box became too great to control. She could not wait any longer, for she suspected that this large box would be full of gold and silver and precious jewels, like the small one her husband had received. Finally, the greedy and selfish old woman set the box down by the side of the road, and carefully opened it, expecting to find a gold mine. But what she saw frightened her so much that she almost lost her mind. As soon as she lifted the cover of the box, a number of horrible and terrifying-looking ghosts jumped out of the box and surrounded her, as if they wanted to kill her. Not even in her nightmares had she ever seen such horrible creatures as those in her coveted box. A devil with a big eye in the middle of his forehead came and looked at her. Monsters with open mouths looked as if they wanted to eat her. A big snake wrapped itself around her and hissed, and a big frog jumped up and croaked at her. The old woman had never been so frightened in her life, and ran from the place as fast as her legs would carry her, glad to escape alive. When she got home, she fell to the floor and cried, telling her husband all that had happened to her, and how the devils in the box had nearly killed her. Then she began to blame the sparrow, but the old man stopped her and said, "Do not blame the sparrow. It is your wickedness that has finally received its reward. I only hope that this will be a lesson to you in the future." The old woman said no more, and from that day on she was sorry for her cruel, unkind ways, and gradually became a good old woman, so that her husband hardly knew her as the same person, and they spent their last days together happily, free from want and worry, carefully spending the gold coins the old man had received from his pet, the tongue-cut sparrow.